Hello, everybody, and welcome. I fear my system just crashed. So, Michelle, if you're out there, please do join me on stage.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, I don't know what. I'm having a mare here, absolute mare. I was saying in the green room earlier that my system has been crashing all over the place, and I had to go and see the Mac doctor, who hopefully would fix me, but I don't think he had. So we crashed at the beginning. But Michelle, you're there, and you're with me in the real world.
I'm here. I will step in if need be. You're
what a start, people said. So I apologize to everybody, and this may well happen again. So we are going to have so much fun today, but you've got no idea how delighted I am to have you here co-presenting with me today, Michelle. As we're talking about a really important subject. We're talking about careers, we're talking about jobs, we're talking about personal development, we're talking about personal branding. I mean, it's a major subject that we've got today. And as is always the case, please join in the conversation. Please write in the comments box. Please tell us who's out there. Hit that like button, hit that clapping button, the applause button, the light bulb button. We really want to know who's there. This is such a big subject that we all need to really get into. And Michelle, I mean, we normally see you here with, as my co-presenter with your Benevo hat on, but you're wearing two hats today, aren't you?
I am here with you as part of Benevo, but I also wear another hat, as many of you know, with TMS. So I'm really thrilled to be able to have, I have two hats today.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so which one's which? Which is the Benevo hat and which is the TMS hat?
We'll make this the Benevo hat.
Okay, yeah, that
kind of European.
Yeah, that looks good.
It's actually from Italy. And then this one is my New York hat. So we'll make that for TMS.
Okay. It's great to have you co-presenting with me. And I see loads of people are coming in. It's great to see everybody here. And then in terms of what we've got coming up, so we're going to be talking about personal branding and careers and jobs, etc. today. But next week, we're going to be talking about managing mobility programs in professional service organizations. So we've got Praveen Hebali, who is the head of operations, mobility operations for CGI. They employ, I think, 77,000 people and are in the technology space globally. And then we also have Guy Smith from DLA Piper, one of the largest law firms in the world. So that's absolutely great that we've got Guy and Praveen on the show next week. And that's next Wednesday at this time. We've also got, on Thursday, we've got Benevo Bites, and that's on reinventing lump sum. So again, I think that's going to be a really exciting subject for us to talk about. There's a lot to be said about that. And then, of course, we've got the GM Top 100, and that has been exciting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what feedback are you getting your side on the pond on the top 100?
I'm hearing a lot of buzz. A lot of people are super excited to see the names that are out there. Just that this is so innovative and just something different in the mobility space. So I think there's a lot of buzz, a lot of talk around it, and I'm excited. I haven't, I don't know what's happening. I think I heard that there's almost 1,000 people that have been nominated, but I have not had been any privy to any of the names so far. So keep those votes coming. I believe the polling is open for 2 more weeks. Is that right, Brian?
Yep, the polling is open for 2 weeks. And in fact, let's just try something now. Let's see if this works. Here we go. This is the website. All you have to do is to go on to top100.benevo.com. If you want, open another tab now. You can do it now, live on air or in your own time. Whatever you do, don't close the tab that we're on, but you can open another tab, top100.benevo.com, and all you have to do is list out the names of the 10 people who you think should be on our top 100 list, and every vote counts. And we'll be releasing the list in a few weeks' time. And I've frozen again.
I think you froze a little bit there, Brian.
Yeah, you carry on. I'll be back in a while.
All right, go on. Fix the computer. So I know Brian last week or a couple weeks ago introduced the concept of a fun fact. So today's fun fact, and I know he had some cool logo happening, but I'm gonna skip the logo and just go for the fun fact today. So the question is, or the fun fact is, does anybody know how many expats there are globally? And by definition of expats, we're talking about anybody who is on a traditional assignment, anybody that may have initiated a self-move. We're talking refugees and we're talking retirees. So if anybody cares to guess how many there are, please feel free to chime in. But I'll give you some ideas about how big this number actually is. So if we took all of the expats and put them all together in one country, they would have the fifth largest country in the world. There are approximately 10 new expats.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back, Brian.
Oh my God. Am I still back? Am I dying again?
You're back. You're back. We were just talking about the fun fact. So I was kind of giving them some little bit of insight into the definition of expats, and I wanted to see if anybody had a guess. Well, anyway, I'll tell you the number. It's 230 million people. 230 million expats. That's 3.1% of the world's population.
And just to feed in on that, that is a United Nations definition, and that is the, if you like, the biggest definition you can get of expats out there. It's not, if you like, necessarily our sort of expats, if I can put it like that. And what I mean by that is that includes people who retire abroad, people who study abroad. It includes people who are self-initiated abroad. It includes economic migrants, and of course it includes refugees. That is basically anybody who is living outside the country they were born in. 230 million people.
Yep. So that's today's fun fact. But also, I know, Brian, I mentioned to you, there were a couple of questions. People wanted to know who the picture of the gentleman is behind you. So do you want to share that with everybody?
Absolutely. That was actually my grandfather, who I never knew. He died before I was born. And that was him as a young man. Incredibly, that painting was actually in 1902. So he was a lot younger then than I am now.
Okay. All right. There you go. Thank you for that.
And hopefully he can fix Mac computers.
All right. Should we move to Julia?
Absolutely. And you are in charge of the controls. I found that every time I touch one of these controls here, that's when my system crashed. So
all right, let's bring Julia up.
You have the controls.
This could be dangerous. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so Julia, great to see you. Where in the world are you taking us today?
Asia Pac and Europe.
Okay, well let's go for it. Tell us about things.
Right. So just wanted to start off with a little bit of news from China, which is that the cases of COVID, there are still a few cases coming up quite recently. But generally across China, the numbers are very, very low. And when I was speaking to Becky Shear, our partner in charge of our China operation, she said that the China International Import Expo in Shanghai, which it was due to be held on the 5th to the 10th of November, is still going ahead at the moment. And this is an absolutely huge event for international potential importers to come to China with a view to selling products to China. And I think that it's quite heartening that some huge expo like this is still in the diary. And I think that should sort of hopefully give us a bit of hope about about the course of COVID. The other interesting thing is that for people who are coming from Macau and Hong Kong, they've now, China has dropped the need to have a full medical. You still need a COVID test, but you don't need a full medical. And hopefully that's another encouraging trend that will start to apply to other applications. And finally, in China, I did discuss with Becky the idea of remote working, because we had such a good session last week on remote working. And she said it's really interesting, and it'll be very interesting to see if there will be much remote working in China, because she sort of felt that it wasn't really culturally something that companies in China actually, thought about a lot, because collaboration in the office was such a big part of the culture, and also because people live with extended families at home, and the circumstances for remote working were sometimes quite challenging. But I thought that, it will be interesting to see if remote working does catch on in China. So just moving to Singapore, by the 2nd of November, it's the aim in Singapore to have people everywhere back in the office if they're going to continue in the office. But there is a major issue that's going on that I'm sure many of you will be really tackling, and that is that because of the very, very high rates of COVID in India, the authorities in Singapore are currently not approving the pre-entry approvals. So a lot of businesses have people in India that their employment passes are about to run out. They can't be extended. Those applications are also failing, and they can't bring them back to India, back from India to Singapore, and that is causing a lot of difficulty. Also, unfortunately, we're seeing really high rates of COVID in Malaysia, where there are currently elections, and there's been a spike in cases in Indonesia. So that's my Asia Pac roundup. And very quickly, I just wanted to say a couple of minutes on Europe, and thank Christine Sullivan, who's been talking to me about Europe over the last few days. And you know that we've been saying that the EU have wanted to have a coordinated response to the pandemic, in particular about quarantine. And they did communicate yesterday what their response was. And basically they're saying there should be a standard traffic light system of red, yellow, green for various areas across Europe, with unified infection metrics and a sort of common passenger locator, and that testing is much preferred to quarantine. But this is a recommendation only. And as we saw in the spring, when the EU made these recommendations, most countries, because they're very concerned about the health risks, they didn't follow the recommendation. And we're expecting there to be continue to be lots of divergences. So if you look across the EU, we're seeing this second wave of infection, like you're seeing in the UK, highest number of cases in Czech Republic, and they're in the middle of a 3-week partial lockdown. Second highest number of cases in Belgium, and particularly around Brussels. And there's a lot of furore going around Brussels because they're closing the bars, but not the restaurants. So there's big arguments as what a bistro is, a bistro, a bar, a restaurant. In the Netherlands, from 10 o'clock tonight, the bars are closing, and the numbers are much higher than in the spring. The other thing to say is that the travel ban is still in place in Europe. So the travel ban is the same as at August the 8th. It hasn't changed. And I'm just going to remind you that the list of epidemiological safe countries are Australia, Canada, Georgia, Japan, New Zealand, Rwanda, South Korea, Thailand, Tunisia, and Uruguay. So if you're coming from those countries, there's no travel ban. Everyone else is subject to the travel ban. China would not be subject to it if it agreed reciprocity, but they haven't agreed it. So if you're a US citizen and you're coming into Europe, or you want to, you're subject to the travel ban. But the thing is, you can find solutions. And my one big message is it's really possible to find solutions for important travel. So remember, there's that extraordinary permission exception. If you have a very senior executive, say, for example, from the US, and they can't do the work remotely, say they're negotiating a mergers or acquisition, and there's an economic benefit to the receiving state, and it's deemed essential, then they can come. And also there's individual countries that have introduced lots of exceptions. So the Netherlands, there are a lot of, for example, US students that are going back to study in their colleges in the US. They can't, and they want to come back to the Netherlands where their families are. And there is now a special exemption in the Netherlands for children up to the age of 21 rather than 18. So the big takeaway from this week is really always reach out to the local authorities and see if there are solutions, because on the face of it, there might not seem to be, but there are a lot of solutions there. Thanks, Brian.
I think what we're hearing is that there's increasing restrictions coming in throughout Europe. As you said, the Netherlands has, I think Northern Ireland has. I'm hearing from Elisa Ketty, one of our viewers, that apparently in France there's the announcement tonight.
Yes.
And I think in the UK, if I had to guess, I'd think there'll be further restrictions coming in over the next few weeks. But thank you so much, Julia. And what we need to do now, I think, is to move on to the subject of today, which is the jobs market. So I'm not going to touch the controls, but maybe we could bring Sean online with us. So, hey, Sean, welcome to the show. And where are you today?
I'm in Singapore. So I've been in Singapore for the last 16 of the last 20 years. So it's a little bit late, but I'm hanging in there.
Okay. And of course, we were joking earlier about Michelle having two hats because she's a partner with you at Talent Mobility Search. Why don't you just quickly tell us a bit about Talent Mobility Search and how you got there? Because you were in-house in mobility first, weren't you?
Yeah, well, actually first, I mean, I landed in mobility almost by mistake, like a lot of people in our industry. I just finished traveling around the world for a couple of years, and I got back to the UK, kind of depressed, wondering what to do. And I saw an advert in a newspaper called Overseas Jobs Express, which is how you found jobs back then. There was no LinkedIn. You might remember that one, Brian. For a management trainee program at Crown Relocations. And they were recruiting people from all over the world to join this program in Australia for 3 weeks. And then they sent each individual off to a Crown office around the world, basically for an assignment as part of this track. So they sent me to China. So I stayed in China for 2.5 years in Beijing. This was in '97. I was managing the sales team for North China, primarily household goods. Then I moved with Crown down to Singapore, and I was managing the kind of client services in Southeast Asia and India. And then I got the opportunity in 2006 to go in-house. So somebody I built a relationship in HR, who was senior HR leader with Microsoft in China. They were looking for someone to come into China and manage their talent mobility programs.
Okay, so you ended up heading up the program regionally for Microsoft.
Yeah, that's right. So I started in China for 4 years and then moved down to Singapore for 4 years. And then after 8 years at Microsoft, then I decided to leave and set up my own company. So it was always something I always wanted to do. So I initially set up Talent Mobility Asia, which is a small consulting firm. But then I got connected with Vincent Tacoen, who had just left Goldman Sachs, managing their mobility programs in APAC. And he had started Talent Mobility Search because he saw a gap in the market for a recruiting firm which actually understood the industry, had lived it, understood the roles, could consult to clients, could coach candidates, and really use the kind of professional networks that people in the industry had kind of built up to talent for these roles. So you
set up, and I'm just going to move the conversation on a bit because I want to sort of get, where do you think the jobs market is today, if I could ask you that?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, it's been very slow, but we are seeing green shoots, I must say. and it's starting in the US. We're seeing more roles come up in the US. Now, on the service provider side, it's still very slow. We're still seeing some of the big players making redundancies. But on the service provider side, we're seeing the smaller, nimble companies. They're the ones that are hiring, especially some of the technology-driven companies that are able to leverage kind of more virtual services. So there are green shoots. So we're seeing roles coming up in the US, on the in-house side as well, also in Europe. Asia's still a bit slow, but I think it will follow. So I think things are slowly changing. So there is some hope out there.
Okay, that's helpful. And certainly I didn't know, very sort of informally. I mean, I look on postings on LinkedIn and things, and I've been seeing even in the last week or so, a few more postings than had been there a bit before that. So maybe we are seeing a little bit of a return to some form of, if not normality, some sort of adjusted normality. But Michelle, I think we've done some research on this as well. How about how people feel?
Sure did, Brian. So I think there's been a lot of discussion. We know friends and colleagues that have been impacted due to the pandemic. And so ask the question, how worried are you about job security? And the options we gave in the poll were not worried, very worried, or already in transition. And the results, I don't know. I'm not sure if they were surprising or not, quite frankly. And I'll go ahead and share them so we can kind of continue on with our discussion. But there are 22% of people are already, in transition. 48% of folks are not worried. They said their job is secure, but 30% said they're very worried. So it's split. 50, roughly 50% of people are saying I'm not worried, but the other 50% have either already been laid off, or they're very worried that something is imminent.
Yeah, I mean, I was calling it the 3 Fs: fear, furlough, and fired. And it is tough out there. I mean, because I think a lot of people who, even if they're not actively looking, are worried at the moment. And so what we want to do today is to talk about, we can talk about the problem. I'd much rather talk about the solution and just talk about, what can we do? What can people do? And yeah, I mean, you put that up there, Michelle. I think that's a really powerful thing. What is the best way? And maybe we could bring, let's bring Holly up on screen too, because let's bring Holly in, because Holly Creed, who's going to be coming up in a second. There you are, Holly.
Hi.
Now, I know you don't mind me saying this because I asked you before in the room, but you're currently in transition yourself at the moment, and you were previously head of mobility at Revolut and at somewhere else before. I can't remember what it was now. DX. I can't remember where you were before.
Don't worry.
It doesn't matter. Anyway, you were somewhere before. And anyway, you were at Revolut most recently. But you're in transition. And let's just ask. I mean, we've got 2 recruiters here. What's the best way of getting the most out of them? And similarly, Sean and Michelle, what's presumably some candidates are easier to work with than others. What can the candidate do to get the best out of you guys?
Sure. I'll let you start.
Yeah, Holly, what do you do from your perspective? Well, how do you like dealing with recruiters?
I think what I appreciate is the honesty that I don't waste my time. I'm either right for this role or I won't be right for the role. And if there's things that we maybe need to tweak in my CV resume, then tell me. And I think it's all about not being afraid to hurt my feelings, if that makes sense. Obviously in a nice-ish way, but I think it's not afraid to have that hard conversation.
Yeah, I agree, Holly. I mean, I think it's very important to be transparent and respectful. So we wouldn't try to put a candidate forward for a role where we didn't feel like it was a good fit, for example, because that's not going to help either the candidate or the client. So we have those kind of honest conversations, and I think that's very important. And also important from the candidate side to be also, honest and upfront about the kind of roles they're looking for and their skill sets and experiences. and their kind of commitment for a particular role. Because there are situations where we'll put a candidate through, several rounds, and then at the end of it, they'll say, actually, I'm looking at another role, or I'm not so interested in this role. So, yeah, having that transparency and honesty, I think, is important.
And presumably, you must find it surprising sometimes that there are people out there who are, need to get a job, and somehow they haven't actually, emailed you or messaged you or picked up the phone or made contact, and you don't even know about them. So, I mean, presumably the first thing you have to do as a candidate is just make sure the recruiter knows you exist.
Absolutely, yeah. Because if you're not on our radar, then we may find you through LinkedIn. But if you're on our radar, we've spoken to you, then you're top of mind. So I would recommend, to everybody that's looking, to touch base with your recruiter, whether it's us or someone else, because that's the first step. And we'll talk a little bit later about networking as well and building your brand. All these things are important.
I think, even for me, kind of being on both sides now, right? When I was searching for a job, and now with my TMS hat on, if I can, to Jeff's point, being able to, get and give constructive and timely feedback, I think, is so important for candidates. When you're not working with a recruiter and you're applying for things blindly, you don't know if your resume was seen. Is it going into a black hole? And when you are engaging with recruiters, I think that's one advantage that you have as a candidate, that you are there is communication, whether it be positive or negative. That constructive feedback, I think, is super helpful.
I'd like to bring into the conversation now. I'd like to bring Lynn Shotwell into the conversation. I'm delighted that Lynn has joined us, and Lynn, as I'm sure, will be very well known to everybody in the industry. Lynn is the president and CEO of Worldwide ERC. First of all, Lynn, it's great and it's a privilege to have you on the show today. So that's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, Brian.
To have you here. And one thing, obviously, ERC is the trade body, is the trade association for everybody in our industry. And I know, everybody thinks of ERC in terms of, GMS and in terms of the summit and the networking events and all that sort of stuff. But actually, you've got a pretty solid career center as well. I was wondering if you want to tell us a little bit about what you can do helping people who are sort of either looking to hire people or looking to apply for roles.
We do. Thanks, Brian. I'm really happy to be here today, and especially because I'm excited that we are seeing an uptick in jobs being posted to our Career Center as well. So just in the past 5 days, we've had global mobility positions posted from Google, Twitter, Workday, Spotify, WeWork, and Wykert. So definitely seeing some uptick. I hadn't seen that much activity in the past month or so, which is great news. So our Career Center is available on our website, worldwideerc.org/jobs. And you can also scroll all the way down to the bottom of our homepage and find the link to the jobs. But it's open to everyone, members and non-members alike. If you're a member, there's abilities to post your resumes in a resume bank. Corporate members are able to post jobs for a lesser fee than others, but it's a great resource, and I'd encourage anyone who's in transition to check it out.
Okay, well, that's worth knowing. I think there are so many different ways of traditional and non-traditional ways of looking for a job, and we've talked about using recruiters, and clearly there's not that many recruiters in this industry, but there are a number. And obviously, TMS do a great job, but there's also, the resources like ERCs. And then, of course, there's things like, just networking. And, they say that in many cases, the best jobs are the ones that aren't advertised. And they're the ones that are hard to get to. So, we thought we'd talk a bit about power networking and what you can do. And actually, I might just start this one with, in fact, Ed's made it. Don't forget your network. You must activate it. And absolutely. So that's exactly what I think we're going to have a good old chat about now, about what we can do to network. But I shall start this one with you, Holly, if I may. You've always impressed me as a sort of a networker par extraordinaire, in the sense that, you've sort of burst onto the scene, and you network very well. In fact, you set up your own networking group, Next Gen GM, which I think is probably bigger in Europe than it is in the US. But maybe tell us a bit about what you've done and how Next Gen GM works and what it is.
Sure. So Next Gen GM really is aimed for individuals with 15 years or less experience in the industry of global mobility, and just to kind of give them that opportunity to network, attend webinars, and just kind of be amongst peers really who have the same, shall we say, level of experience and potentially are going through the same types of things. And I think really why myself and my co-founder did this was because there wasn't really anything else like it, particularly in the UK. But also as well, it's just sometimes nice to have that opportunity to kind of offer a safe space for individuals and allow everyone that opportunity. And one of the things I've always said is you have to take those opportunities. So, for example, I've gone to the ERC Worldwide Summit for the last few years, but I did that on my own steam, knowing it was a good network opportunity because there wasn't budget at my company. So I think it's very important that you take opportunities and equally make opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's all sorts of events that are out there. I mean, there's ERC, there's other events, but none of them are real anymore. At least for the next, 6 to, well, maybe 12 months, who knows? But so the question that comes in next is, how do you network when you can't actually shake somebody's hand and have a coffee with them like you used to be able to do? And I don't know. I mean, maybe. Lynn, I mean, you've got the GWS summit coming up in, I think it's just a few weeks now, isn't it?
Right.
And
exactly.
How are people going to be able to network? And tell us a bit about the summit. Let's give the summit a bit of a plug, because it is a great place for the industry to network, whether real or virtual.
So thanks, Brian. I appreciate that plug for it. And, I think I'm a great example of kind of how you can build a network in a virtual world, because I started this job March 30th. I have not met my members in person. It's all been virtual networking, and it's becoming normal. And so I think the great opportunity that having everything virtual presents is that you can attend events really at a much lower cost. So for example, this year, the Global Workforce Symposium, what we decided to do is we combined not just the event we were planning to have in Washington, D.C., but also summits that we were planning to have in EMEA and APAC and Latin America, our government affairs forums, and we put them all over the course of a month. And we priced it at $250 for an individual. So it's very affordable. There are no travel costs. So it's very affordable for someone to invest in their career and attend. There are over 60 different educational sessions, so great wealth of knowledge across about 10 or 11 different kind of vertical segments in terms of, there's everything from real estate to immigration to tax. So you can really educate yourself on a lot of different areas. And then we're also adding a whole bunch of networking events into the whole session. So there'll be lots of opportunity to get together with peers. Some of the events will be more serious, some will be more fun, but really a good opportunity to kind of get your name out there and to get, to understand and learn from others who are already in the industry. So if you haven't checked it out, I'd encourage you, check out what we're offering this year.
Okay. I was going to check that out at what's the website for them to check it out at?
You can get to it through worldwideerc.org. I think it's / global mobility, global workforce symposium.
Okay, just Google ERC, you'll find it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Go to ERC. There'll be a link right at the top of the page to the Global Workforce Symposium.
Okay, Julia, you were saying.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I do agree with Lynn that it is an extraordinary time, that almost, remote networking is becoming, the way to network. And I always answer messages that I get on LinkedIn. And also, really interestingly, I did an event the other day, and the person that was organizing the event, it's quite a junior person in the company. She reached out to me and said, "Oh, would you mind talking to me about my career and just acting as a bit of a mentor for an hour?" And I was just delighted to do it. And I think people are actually having more opportunities in a way, because they're not so nervous about reaching out because it's, by email or whatever, and they might say they saw you do a seminar, or, they would love to be in touch with you. And I think this is becoming a new normal, and I think in a way it's a positive development in some respects.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly whenever people reach out to me, and I suspect it's the same for all of us on this call, if anybody reaches out to us, very happy to help. And certainly I remember putting a posting on LinkedIn a few weeks ago saying exactly that. And I had a number of people contact me, and, hopefully I was of some use to all of them. But let's talk about LinkedIn. I read somewhere just the other day that 90% of all jobs are now posted on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is, and I know LinkedIn is both a useful tool for recruiters and a threat for recruiters, because a lot of companies are just trying to post them themselves. But one of the things that always sort of slightly worries me is I look at people in our industry and I look at their profiles on LinkedIn, and sometimes, to be honest, their profiles aren't that strong. And I would say that it's a real challenge, and that everybody who is thinking about looking for a job should actually really work on their LinkedIn profile. I can't emphasize how important that is. And I've actually got 10 tips that I would sort of like to share with people for how to use LinkedIn. I've got about 11,500 followers on LinkedIn, so I've probably got a better than average number of followers. And I've done quite a bit of research. But here would be my quick tips for anybody looking to promote themselves on LinkedIn. Starting with the most obvious, the first is set up a profile. Okay, you've got to be in it to win it. But you can check your profile, and if your profile doesn't say all-star next to it, then it's not good enough. Okay, all-star isn't that difficult to get, but it just means you've got to put a lot of information in there. Make sure you've got a good photo. You might even want to use a professional photo. And the other thing is that blue background at the back, you can put something on that background. So use that background. Don't just leave it as the same blue as everybody else. Make your background stand out. And then when you describe your name, make sure that you can use, I don't know how many characters you've got, but a fair few. Make sure you've got something out there that makes it stand out immediately. The next thing I would say is look for connections. Once you're on LinkedIn, try and get yourself more connections. And and if you're in a situation where you're actively looking, set yourself a target of getting, say, 20 or 15 new connections a day. And that's not difficult. Start off with people you know, and then look at people you know and who are the people they know, i.e. your secondary degree connections, and send them requests. And make the requests you send them meaningful. Don't just say hello, just put some wording in there. And then I think this is something you and I were discussing, Lynn, offline, is include keywords. I don't know if you want to say a bit about that, but in your description, include keywords.
Absolutely. I think Brian, I love your tips, and I'm going to use those on mine. I have to admit, social media has not been my thing. So one of the things I've had to do is schedule time to make sure that I pay attention to social media. And like Julia, I will respond to anybody who asks for help. It might take a little while, but definitely I try to respond. If I miss it, send me another note. But we were talking earlier, and I said, my husband hadn't looked for a job in 20 years, and last year he started looking for one, and so he hadn't updated his resume in a long time, and wasn't kind of getting any bites. And then he sat down with a friend of his who actually had recently found a job, and he said, look, here's some of the words you need to use in your resume. And he happens to work in the freight forwarding and customs brokerage industry. So he said, here's some of the keywords you need to know that maybe you didn't have to have last time you looked for a job. And make sure your LinkedIn profile matches what's on your resume, because when you're applying for jobs, either recruiters will look directly, or you'll have, bots that are looking to make sure that everything's consistent. So he updated everything, and within 2 weeks had multiple interviews, and within a month, several job offers. So I call them the magic words. I don't know what the magic words were he put in there for his industry, but I think it's really important.
Absolutely. And some of those words in our industry, I mean, I think they're obvious, aren't they? Things like global mobility, depending what work you do, immigration, tax, relocation, choose some of those words. I mean, so there's a few of the tips. Some more. I mean, if there's companies out there that you're interested in working for, follow them. So you make sure it comes up in their feed. My next tip would be look for super connectors. I mean, there's some people who are very well connected, who've got over, say, a couple of thousand followers. Connect with them, because again, you'll see what their activity is, and that will feed through. Next tip, I'm running through them very quickly. Stay active. Try and like or comment or post on LinkedIn once or twice a day. So again, you're staying active in other people's feeds. Make it personal. If there's stuff you want to say about yourself, I'm not talking about turning it into Facebook, but add a human touch to what you're doing. I mean, I know last week, Julia, you posted a picture of the empty train station. That I noticed got many likes and comments because it was personal. It was actually something about your life that was out there. So I thought that was a great initiative. Others I'd throw out there, ask people for endorsements. Go out there and ask other people to endorse your profile, to make your profile look as good as possible.
One thing I would add, Brian, sorry to that, we were talking about LinkedIn, and also I think this carries over into the resume piece, that it doesn't necessarily read like a job description. To not be afraid to talk about your accomplishments, brag a little bit about who you are and what you've accomplished. I think that's the kind of differentiator that people need to, be able to reflect on, on themselves, and then being able to share. Because if there are recruiters looking out there, they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. And if you just have your title in the company, it doesn't say much about you.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, that whole question about not being shy, not hiding your sort of light under a bushel, I think that applies not just when you're looking, but in your career generally. I remember somebody I used to work for used to refer to it as the self-congratulatory memo. And she used to write the SCM, as she called it. She used to write a memo to her boss when she'd done something good, to say something like, "Oh, I just thought I'd let you know that this happened, that happened," because she wants to make sure it was written, it was on file somewhere, and it was remembered, especially when appraisal time came around. I think too often people are a bit shy about their own achievements.
And to that point, Brian, I mean, people should be updating their LinkedIn profile and their CV continuously. So as they've achieved or accomplished something in their role, then add it so that you don't forget it.
Yeah, and a good point that's come in fact, from Mark O'Reilly. He said, make sure your open to work settings for recruiters is set up properly, including titles and locations. He says you have 5 choices for both. So yeah, again, LinkedIn is there to help you, and and it's your job to make it so that the recruiters can find you. So great point, and thank you for that. Another point says join groups. There are lots of groups out there. If there's industries or sectors that you're interested in, whether it's an ERC group or one of the other groups, on LinkedIn, do join them. So lots of ideas out there of how you can use LinkedIn. But I think there's another issue out there, which is more generally. This is about how you stand out from the crowd. At the end of the day, it is a competitive world. There are sadly at the moment less jobs than there are people looking for those jobs. So what's going to make you stand out? I mean, maybe I'll throw that out to to Holly or to Sean? I mean, what can people do from either side of the divide there, the person looking and the recruiter, to make sure that they stand out from the crowd?
Yeah. So, I mean, from talking to hiring managers and just my experience, some of the key skill sets which are in demand are around data analytics, transformation, tech implementation. So I would recommend people to go out and search and kind of upskill in these areas. And there's plenty of great content. I mean, with the ERC, there's the data analytics course. You can go to Tableau, Power BI, and do you can learn the data visualization tools. I saw that Alteryx, which is a data analytics software, offering free courses for people impacted by COVID right now. So there's a lot of great courses out there that are either free or very reasonable, so people can go out there and learn some of these key skills. And it's not like in the past where you have to be a computer engineer, that knows how to code to run these programs. They're very user friendly, and a complete beginner can pick up most of the skills.
Actually, you raised a great point about skills there, and you said there's some free or discounted courses out there at the moment. I know, in fact, I'm delighted to say that we've had 3 offers from people to provide discounted or free education in our sector, starting with ERC. So, Lynn, do you just want to say a little bit about what ERC is offering, and many thanks to ERC for doing so.
Oh, we're happy to do this, Brian. So we offer, really, it's important to start out, we offer 2 certifications. One is for the Global Mobility Specialist, which is probably the most relevant for this audience. And we're offering a 50% discount on that.
There we go.
We'll put that up. We also offer a certified relocation professional for those in the real estate industry. So that is offered twice a year. And we actually offered a second window this year on that. But in addition to that, we do have a learning portal. And within the learning portal, we've created some global mobility specific badges that you can earn. So global mobility and diversity, managing talent programs. So we have 7 of those that we currently offer, and we're adding more all the time. But these are ways to really stand out, I think, to recruiters. And they all now come with digital downloadable badges that you can put on your LinkedIn page, that you can add to your resume. So check that out. And we're also offering a discount on the Learning Portal of 20%. And so within the Learning Portal, there are both the courses we've created and curated. And then we've also partnered with LinkedIn Learning to offer over 15,000 different courses. So, data analytics, there are a number of courses in there, general business management courses, customer service courses. There's a whole variety. So you can really beef up, your resume and your skill set as you're preparing for interviews.
And just to let people know who are listening in, you are able to apply for GMS credits just for watching this show, and we're in discussion with ERC about automating that process. But at the moment, it is something where people can apply. Maybe just Lynn say a little bit about how that works.
Yeah. So as you're applying for recertification, there's a form that you can fill out to ask for credit for for programs like this that are not already approved. So again, that's all available on the website. If you can't find it, let me know, and I'll make sure my team gets you the information.
And just a question for you, Lynn, that's come in. This is from Dawn Wozniak. Is there a path to renew for expired GMS?
I am certain there is some sort of a path. I have to admit, I don't know, but I will have my team reach out to you on that.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that, Dawn. And we've actually also had, obviously ERC is the industry-wide body, but we also have a couple of other free offers or discounted offers that we wanted to share with you. And I'm really delighted that so many people in our industry have pulled together. And this one is from Expat Academy, My GMPD. And what they've said is that for anybody who is currently in transition, so that, please note that's specifically for people who are in transition or on furlough, they're offering a 50% discount on mygmpd.com if you apply online and you use the code Benevo. So if anybody is interested in doing a MyGMPD qualification, then that offer is on the table for those people who are in transition at the moment. And then the other offer we've had is from Expertise Academy, Expertise Academy, not to be confused with Expat Academy, which is the Dutch headquartered organization. And they are offering a 50% discount on the elementary global mobility course and a free license for the first 20 applicants on their Educate Yourself portal. Now, the interesting thing I find about the Expertise Academy one is it's a very technical one. So for people who want to get really sort of detailed technical tax and legal learning in the mobility space, it is actually accredited for part of a master's degree with Erasmus University, which I understand those credits work worldwide. If you've got any questions of that, then email the good people at Expertise Academy, or for the other one, email the good people at Expat Academy, or otherwise approach Lynn and her team at ERC. So plenty of really good offers for people who are looking to upskill themselves. We have actually done another bit of research, haven't we, about being prepared and how you can be prepared to find that job. And Michelle, do you want to sort of talk us through that?
Yeah. So I think some people obviously were impacted earlier on, and some people are impacted now, and I personally feel there may be some fallout months down the road from this. So I think we talk about being prepared. I think when you think back to the initial poll about, do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? The number was fairly high. So I asked the question, when's the last time you updated your resume? Are you prepared? And so the question was, right, like I said, when did you last update your resume? The options being within the last 6 months, about 6 to 12 months, or not since my last job change. And I think our advice probably collectively is that it should always be current. And I'll share the results. I'm not sure if it's surprising or not. Within the last 6 months, 62% of people responded. So that's a pretty high number. And I think that was close to 100 respondents. 18% said they did it in the last 6 to 12 months. 20% said not since their last job change.
Actually, Brian, we're going to talk as well about, how you present yourself for the interview. Because I would say before we came on screen, I was just saying that I remember years and years ago, someone told me always, when you go physically for an interview, you shouldn't sit down in those big squishy comfy sofas you see in reception, because often you're like a sort of, have great difficulty getting up and you look really inelegant. And it's really nice if you stand in reception and meet people and look them in the eye. And there is, we had a very funny thing on Fragment with some, internal training on making sure your camera's in the right position, and some funny shots of people who are speaking with their faces just above the bottom, and, really weird backgrounds. And I think that's, in this remote working world, I don't know if Sean and Emily think so, but I think it is important to take extra care about, where your camera position is, and maybe invest in a little bit of backlighting or something, because I think that can make a little bit of difference to your impression for an interview. Do you think that, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely, because most recruiters and hiring managers will ask for a video call, because the physical in-person interview can't typically happen. So you're right, having professional equipment, looking professional on the call, making sure there's no interruptions, a strong kind of internet speed, all of these things will help to make a good, solid, professional impression. And looking at the camera, not getting distracted. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually conducted an interview a few months ago with somebody as part of the deciding panel, and one of the candidates, it was on Zoom. They'd not used Zoom before. They didn't know what they were doing. It just didn't create a good impression. There speaks the man whose Mac has crashed today live on air with hundreds of people. So it can happen to anybody. The one thing I would say is that when you go into an interview, it is really important to be confident. Really, really important that you go in. You've just got to believe in yourself. I just think it's one of those things that you've just got to. You've absolutely got to believe in yourself. You've got to have that self-belief, and if you don't have that self-belief, then it's just not gonna work. I mean,
it comes across.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you don't believe in yourself, why should anybody else believe in you?
Yeah.
When I was interviewing for this position, and this was pre-COVID, I did all of my initial interviews with the board of directors virtually. And then we had a final meeting in person. So I think what you're saying is so important. You have to prepare just as much for that virtual interview as you would in person.
I think also you need to kind of apply the same rules, like be on time, kind of do your research, and so you know what the company is about, what their objectives are. Show that you actually are very serious, because as much as it is virtual, it's not a hangout, it is still an interview.
Yeah.
And think of really strategic questions as well, so that you demonstrate you've done your research and you understand their business.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting towards the end of our hour, but there's one last area I just wanted to touch on, is that, we've talked in terms of career development and job hunting, but there's also other ways you can act. There's portfolio careers and non-traditional careers and things like that. And I mean, Michelle, that's the way you've gone. I mean, you've gone portfolio. I mean, do you want to talk about how it is going from being employed to being portfolio?
Sure. I'm not sure it was necessarily something I had envisioned, but you go back to the initial kind of job hunt and the search and your network, and for me I really realized the importance of and the importance and the power of LinkedIn and my network, and through that network, this portfolio that of my career is now in front of me. Having the opportunity to work with Benevo on the strategy council, being able to do what I do with Sean and the team at TMS, and being also able to do some of my own independent consulting. I have been able to leverage my skills, my network, stay in the mobility field, but not in a traditional corporate role. And I'm really enjoying it. And I think sometimes it takes a little bit of kind of stepping out of that comfort zone, being able to take a risk, but finding happiness in maybe some of those non-traditional roles. And I think, Sean, you've even, you could speak to that as well, and other people that we've met along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, building a portfolio career doesn't mean every one of those careers has to be in traditional, mobility career. You could pursue other passions or interests that you have as part of that portfolio. So if you're into photography or writing, that could be part of the portfolio. So it's a good time for people to kind of reflect and think about, what they're passionate about, what skill sets they have, and find a way or opportunities where they can apply them, whether that's inside the industry or outside.
Yeah, and in fact, I've just seen another offer that's come up, and this is from Susan Swavely. She said, REA Partners in Transition have been offering free job search webinars, networking, video interviews, LinkedIn, etc., to help others during COVID. So thank you so much, Susan. We really appreciate that. And if there's other offers that people want to make to the profession, then do let me know, or let Michelle know, and we'll make sure that we highlight that in future episodes. That's pretty much all we've got time for today. It's been I think a very insightful hour. So I really appreciate everybody's comments and thoughts, and the audience that we've had today. We're back next week talking, moving on from to this week was all about you, but next week we're going to be going back to what we normally do, which is we're going to be talking about programs and the industry itself. And we're getting the views of Praveen Habali and Guy Smith from CGI and from DLA Piper, talking about their large programs and working in professional services and technology industries. So I think that will be a pretty exciting session we've got. And then that's next Wednesday. And the next Thursday, we're back with Benevo Bikes, which is the world's first technology mobility platform. And we're going to be talking about how we can reinvent lump sum. But anyway, it's been lovely talking to everybody here. It's been lovely having all our guests on the show today. Apologies for the technology blips at the beginning. I suspect I'll have a new computer by this time next week. But thank you all, everybody, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.